Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for our November edition of our onX Hunt App 101. My name's Jack. I'm joining you virtually from central Minnesota right now. I'm joined by Tori. Is that how it goes, Tori?
I guess so.
Joined by Tori in Missoula. What's going on?
Not much, man. How's Minnesota?
Unseasonably warm. I think it was might have touched 70 today, but looks like we're going to get some cooler weather coming through for the weekend, which should be good for the deer opener.
Nice.
So just want to get into a couple housekeeping things while we let a few more people roll in here. Your audio and video are turned off, so no worries about that. If you do have a question that you'd like us to answer, we typically do Q&A towards the end of the class. If you do have a question, you can drop that in the Q&A box along the bottom of your screen. We have a couple folks from our customer support team answering questions there. So if you have anything you don't understand, or we go over something a little too quickly, that's a great place for those. If you do have questions that are kind of specific to your account, be they trying to reset a password, a question on your billing, anything like that, those are better sent directly to our customer support email, and that is help@onxmaps.com. We just don't quite have the bandwidth on this class to be able to answer, dig into some of those types of questions when it's specific to your account. So that's going to be the best option there. We're going to run through kind of the basics of the app tonight, kind of a higher level look at everything. We won't be able to get into every single feature, seeing as this is a 101, but the goal for the class is that you'll be able to take the app, pull it up on your phone. You're going to be able to find what kind of land you're on and what kind of land you're looking at, be able to use all the different layers we have. You'll be able to save offline maps for when you don't have cell service. You'll be able to track yourself. You'll be able to mark waypoints, points of interest, stuff like that on there. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of our goal, what we're going to go through tonight here. I forget anything in there, Tori?
I don't think so. We're gonna get everybody up and running as far as like basic understanding of the stuff, and then we got some different videos for later, right, Jack? I mean, a little more in depth.
Yep. Yeah, and we do more in-depth dives on our YouTube channel. We have a lot of great videos, and then in our other master classes that are more kind of topic specific, where we dive in a little bit deeper. But also, one thing I forgot, stick around towards the end of the class. We're going to do a giveaway. We got some t-shirts we're going to give away, so we'll post that giveaway link in the chat towards the end. We also have a pretty sweet discount off a membership for everyone in here that doesn't have an onX membership yet. There's a discount opportunity towards the end of that class. So let me move on. We kind of talked about some of this, but what we're going to go through tonight is reminders of what a basic membership is, what it gets you. We're going to talk through getting started in the app, what to do, when you first open it up, what to look for, what all the buttons do, how to use layers, offline maps, tools, that kind of thing. And then we'll try to save about 15 minutes towards the end for some question and answer time.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share from my phone. I'm going to pull up the onX app there. So give me one moment to get that pulled up.
While you're doing that, I'll kind of explain our different options for the membership. So a basic membership is a membership that's, Jack will get into that, but it's an expired trial or maybe an expired membership that you've had. A premium membership, which is basically $30 a year, is going to give you access to one state. And then we have the elite membership, which will give you access to all 50 states. And that's $100 a year. We do actually have a monthly membership option for that too. So if you're a Montana resident and you're like Jack and you're heading to Minnesota for like a quick bird hunt and you just need, multiple state access for a short period of time, we have an elite monthly membership for $14.99. And that's a great way to get, multiple states for that short period. But sorry, Jack, I'll let you go.
Well, my dog popped in to say hi.
Always time for dogs. Absolutely.
She did good in South Dakota on her pheasant hunt last week. So
Nice. Good to hear.
So this is jumping in here. This is the onX Hunt app. So this is what you see when you download it from either the App Store on an iPhone or the Google Play Store on an Android phone. So you do have to go in and download it. If you purchase a membership, it doesn't automatically send it to your phone. You just got to take that step. Go into the App Store, search for onX Hunt. Should be the first thing that pops up. You'll download it. It'll ask for your email and password. If you haven't created an account yet, it'll have you do that. I'm guessing most people in this call have done that. So if you're not logged in, it'll just ask for your email and password. Otherwise, it'll just pull up the map screen right away. So you can see here, there's this blue dot in my map. That is my location. I'm sitting here in St. Cloud, Minnesota, right along the banks of the Mississippi. If you're not seeing that, like if I would just move my map away, and I'm not seeing a blue dot anywhere, the way that I can easily find my location is in the lower right-hand corner, that button that looks kind of like a crosshair. If I tap that, it brings the map right to my location. Okay, and I can zoom in and see, where I am. If I tap that a second time, this is a question we get quite a bit, is how do I orient the map so that it's not just north up? So I just tapped, again, I'll back up, I'll show you again. I tap that button, you can see it turns blue, brings my location to the center of the screen. I tap it again, and now I have this kind of flashlight or this cone coming off of my dot. And as I'm just spinning my phone around, I can see the map spinning. So whatever direction the top of the phone is facing, that's going to be up on my map. So I'm pointed basically due south here right now. So this is super handy for if you're driving along and maybe you've got your phone mounted on your dash or something, and you want to be able to see easily what's on the left of you, what's on the right of you. You need to make a turn. If you're hiking along a trail, to be able to see what's coming up. Super slick to be able to do that. And then that's also how you can display a compass on your screen in the top right corner. You can see that compass there. And that compass is also how you can return your map to north. So if I tap the compass, it spins back around. Now north is up, and I'm kind of back to where I was there. So that's kind of the first step, is find where you are, find your location. You should see that blue dot there. Sometimes you may have turned off your location permissions. So if you tap that dot and it says something like location permissions denied or disabled, you might have to go into your settings and give onX permission to show your location. But that's doesn't happen too often. Most people have that setting correct there. Moving ahead to our map layers, in the lower left-hand corner, there's this button that says Hunt Map Layers. Now, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of the app. This is really where you can customize your map and get it to show the information that you want to see. Most people, when they get onX, what they're looking for primarily is the public and private land boundaries. So those are organized by state. You can see right now, I have Minnesota and Montana turned on. If you have a basic membership, meaning you'd started a trial and then elected not to purchase, or you had an old membership that expired, you don't get any of those state layers. So you probably won't see any in there. With a premium membership, you get one state. And with an elite membership, you get access to all 50 states plus Canada. We're adding data in for Canada as well right now. So like I said before, they're all grouped by state. So I'm in Minnesota right now. I'm just going to tap on that folder to open it up. I can slide this menu up. We've got 6 different layers for Minnesota. And some of these layers are going to be, there's going to be parallels in every state. For every state, we have private lands, we have government lands, we have possible access. We also have hunt areas in your state. They might be called hunt districts, game management units, hunt zones. Every state kind of calls it something different. Only exception to that's Illinois and Indiana. Their deer hunt zones are organized by their county. So for that, you just use whatever county you're in. You won't have that layer there. I always have my private and government lands turned on. I have my hunt areas turned on. And this I might change. This is a question I know we get quite a bit. because a state like Minnesota has different permit areas for different species. So I was actually hunting bear in Minnesota this September. So I was in my bear permit areas. I had those turned on. And again, how I got to that under the hunt areas, I tapped view options. This weekend, I'm going to go deer hunting. I'm going to switch it to deer. We hear from folks, it seems like Wyoming is the most common state we hear from folks because Wyoming has mule deer units, elk units, antelope units, bighorn sheep, like they're all different. So if you're looking at your map and you're saying, hey, this isn't quite matching up with the regulations, double check that you've got the right species turned on in your hunt districts or your hunt areas layer there. Another layer I use quite a bit is the possible access layer. Now, these are private lands that may be open to public hunting. So if I go up, I think there's still some up here by Grand Rapids, Minnesota. If I can get to the right area. So here's some possible access. This is all Blandin Paper Company land, and I'm not really hotspotting here. I used to live up there, and everyone kind of knows Blandin Paper Company. I've never actually been to this spot, but it's the paper company owns the land, so they manage it for timber harvest for the paper mill there, but they allow public access in most of the areas. Sometimes they might have an area that's closed off, but you can go hunting there and just hiking and, you know, see the leaves and everything. You have this in a lot of Western and Southern states with companies like Weyerhaeuser, which I think is still the largest or one of the largest landowners in the country. They have a lot of land that they allow public access on. This layer is not a guarantee that there's public access. You do want to do your due diligence and check either with like maybe the Minnesota DNR or Fish, Wildlife and Parks in Montana, whatever your state game agency is, and or the company themselves, just to make sure that they do allow access and that that particular area is open. If they're doing a bunch of logging in there, they're probably going to have that closed off. If there's fire danger, they sometimes will close that stuff off. We also have land trusts and groups like the Nature Conservancy. It's kind of a similar thing. They're not commercial entities like a paper company, they're nonprofits, but they own some land and they will often allow access there as well.
You know, one thing we'll get questions about is, especially kind of newer users are asked the question, where can I hunt? You know, we're a reference. At no point are we going to say where you can or cannot go, you know, to recreate. So it really is, you know, we're doing our best to show where these boundaries are and if there's possible access, but you do want to do your due diligence to make sure that this is something that's okay to go. I mean, you know, Glacier National Park says it's public, but you're not gonna go hunt there. Well, you maybe be able to go once, but then you're not going to hunt again. Like that, right. That's how that works.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. We often get that question of, hey, this is public, can I hunt there? We can't tell for every single parcel in every single state, right? That's an enormous undertaking to try to determine that. You may be able to hunt there. Quite often you can, especially if it's BLM land or national forest, but not always. So you do want to double check, you know, maybe you've got to call most often it's going to be your state fish and game agency, whether that's called a DNR or fish and parks, fish, game and parks, whatever. And just double check with them and they would be more than happy to help you. They don't want people going into the wrong spot either. It helps out everybody. The last layer I want to talk about here for the state layers is the walk-in access. So more and more states are creating these programs. In Montana, it's called block management. In Minnesota, it's walk-in access. North Dakota, it's public land open to sportsmen. Access Yes is Idaho. All kinds of different programs. I think just about every state west of the Mississippi has it, except maybe Nevada. And I'm not sure if Arizona does, but those states are a lot of public. East of the Mississippi, it's a little bit more hit or miss. A lot of Midwestern states do have a program. I know Alabama does. Some Southern states are starting to have more and more. So what I'm looking at here is this black box with the red dots in it. That's a walk-in area. It's labeled right there. So this is private land that the landowner has enrolled in a state program where they typically will get like a stipend or some form of payment. Maybe it's a tax break from the state to allow public hunting access on their property. If I want to find some more information on this parcel, all I have to do is tap the map. We did get some questions on, hey, is there a legend in the onX map? What do all the colors mean? We don't have a legend, but what you can do if you ever want to know what something is on the map, you can tap it. We call that querying the map. So when I tap it, it pulls up this card here that tells me who the owner of this land is, what their tax address is. So this is, you can see it's an Arizona address. It's not the address of that actual parcel. It's the address where the landowners get their taxes or get their mail sent. So these are some folks in Arizona that own some land in Minnesota. I can see the walk-in access, the name of it, and that's really all the information there. For a state like Montana, where they have a little bit more of a complex walk-in system, they're going to tell you if it's a type 1 or a type 2 BMA, and there's different rules for those. And they're also going to have a link to their website where you can see more specifics on what animals are allowed to be hunted on this parcel and things like that. Montana has one of the oldest walk-in programs in the country, so it's a little bit more of a mature program. Minnesota's is only 4 or 5 years old, I think. So each state's going to look a little bit different as far as the information that they provide to us in the app there.
I really like that we include links, in the app where you can click on it and it should take you to that state agency that's running it. Man, it just saves me so much time instead of like trying to go through their website and figure out where I want to go.
Right. I was talking about the query there and the different colors. So I just want to give another example here. You can see I have a few different colors in this portion of northern Minnesota. If I tap on this kind of light green, I can see that's the Chippewa National Forest. If I tap on this kind of bluish green, that's the Bowstring State Forest. So everything is color coded. National Forest is that green color. BLM land is kind of a yellowish brown color, almost a tan. State lands are going to be a blue color, and there might be differences between like state school trust land and state forest. They're a slightly different shade. National Park Service is purple. Military installations are kind of a pink color. What else am I forgetting, Tori? I think you nailed them. Yeah. Reservations, let me get up to the Red Lake Reservation here, are kind of this yellowish color here. So that's something to keep in mind as well for tribal lands. Let's get back into some more layers. So we touched on the state layers. I'm going to go to some of our nationwide layers. So if I open up this map layers menu, you can see these other folders in here. And all of these layers that are in current conditions, land and access, road, trails and rec, trees, crops, cover, those are all nationwide. So we sometimes get the question of somebody trying to look for one of the crop layers, which we'll get to in a moment. They'll say, hey, I don't see my Minnesota crop layers. It's because it's not Minnesota specific. It's nationwide. So you turn it on for the whole country, you turn it off for the whole country. So if I go into my current conditions, we've got a handful of different layers in here. I'm not gonna be able to touch on them all. The one I want to talk about is the one I always have turned on, and that's the active wildfire layer. Now we're kind of coming out of the wildfire season here, but July, August, September, this is an important one to have on. Let me see if I can find a fire. Here's one. So here's a fire in Wyoming. I can tell by that icon on the map. And if I zoom in, that red area is the perimeter of that fire. So this one's not a super big fire, but again, like anything, I can tap on it to get some more information on it. So this is the Cherokee Trail fire, 16 acres. And we often get a question of how often is this updated? We check the data source multiple times a day. So you can see we checked this one today. However, the data source hadn't updated since September 26th. So that's something that our map can only be as good as the data that we get from the managing agency. Most of the time, especially in the peak fire season, they're updating much more often. So this fire, I would expect, is probably not the same 16 acres. It may be out, but we go by the data source and what they tell us. We don't make the determination of, that's probably out, let's pull it, because maybe it's not. So that's something to keep in mind. You can see when we last checked, and you can see when the data source was last updated. Of course, the only way to know 100% for sure is really to be there. But this does give you a good idea of where a fire might be burning near you, a place to avoid. Moving down to the land and access folder, the wilderness areas should be turned on automatically for you. That's going to show you, of course, those non-motorized wilderness areas. It's going to show kind of like a white or gray hash mark across the land. So if I go up to, let me find like the Bob Marshall Wilderness here. There you can see that coloration there is showing me the wilderness. And of course, if I query it, it's going to tell me Flathead National Forest. Scroll down, a lot of trails there, Bob Marshall Wilderness. The other one that's in there that I pretty much always have turned on is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas. So these are going to be typically waterfowl refuges and other types of refuges. Waterfowl is the most common type of refuge, but I didn't know. I learned this recently. Tori, do you know there's one in, I believe it's Nevada, that was created for pronghorn?
I did not.
Only refuge in our wildlife refuge system created specifically for pronghorn antelope. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Man, that's pretty cool.
But here's one that, give me 1 second, Tori, stall for time. My dog is tearing up a blanket.
Probably for family heirloom or something, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's super helpful to have all this information here, you know, at our fingertips. So I was just kind of looking through some of the chat questions. And again, if you guys have specific questions about your account, be sure to hit us up, help@onxmaps.com. Shoot us an email, and we'll get to that, you know, later today or early tomorrow. So if you have specific stuff for your information, you know, for you individually, reach out and let us know.
Yep, I'm back. German wire hair puppy. They get into trouble all the time. So we were talking about the refuges. This is a refuge in Montana that has some areas that allow hunting and some that don't. Now, refuges are typically, they have a lot more restrictions than other lands do. So this north part here, it's only archery and it's only white-tailed deer. That's all you can hunt there. This southern part is only waterfowl. In that middle part, there's no hunting at all. So it kind of gives you at a glance what you might be able to hunt, what you can't hunt. And again, like anything else, if I query it, I can see some more information. And I'm not going to tap on this because it'll take us, you know, to their website. But if I click that more info, visit website, that takes me right to that refuge's website where I can find more information on seasonal closures, different dates, different methods of take that are allowed there. Let me get back here. Going to talk about roads, trails, and recreation. So these are another group of layers I almost always have turned on, especially my trails, my motorized roads and trails, my recreation sites. Recreation sites are going to be campgrounds, boat accesses, fishing accesses. We even have some breweries in there for after the hunt.
Very important to know that.
Right, exactly. You want to be able to, you know, stay hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
The trails, those are going to be typically non-motorized trails. So hiking, horseback, even some are cross-country skiing in the winter. And then if you turn on the trail slope and trail mileage, that's going to show you what the trail length is and then how steep it might be. So if I go, this is a trail you're not going to hunt, but this is the M trail in Missoula. If anybody's been to Missoula, you've seen the M on the side of Mount Sentinel there. This gives us a good idea that trail slope layer is what gives the coloration to the layers there. You can see along the river here, it's pretty flat. It's a green line. If you're going to climb up Mount Sentinel, you can take this red route here, which I've never done, but it's pretty steep. If you take this M trail, it's orange. So it's still pretty steep, but not quite as steep as the red. Yellow is between, you know, it's a little steeper than the green. Kind of gives you an idea of how steep a trail might be. whether you want to take that route or not.
Yeah, it's super cool. I feel like you can kind of visit a place without actually going there.
Right. And then the final layer in there is the motorized roads and trails. These are going to be on, for the most part, on national forest land. That's kind of where we get this info from, the Forest Service. These are motorized trails, just like the name says. And if I tap on the map, I can see the name of the road. I can see how long that section is. I can see its open and closed dates, especially in Montana and a lot of other states. A lot of these roads will be closed seasonally, either because of weather or to protect game, when they're on their winter range or during migration, things like that. So this road opens May 16th every year and closes November 30th. Typically in Montana, it's going to close whenever, a lot of times when the rifle season ends. Some roads will close when archery season starts, some close when rifle season starts, depends on the area. They work with Fish and Game to kind of try to protect the animals a little bit. But this is important because you don't want to drive all the way out there thinking you're going to drive this road and then get stopped by a gate. I know
Right.
What's happened to me, and I work for the company that gives me the information. So make sure you're double checking that. You also want to check to make sure that your vehicle is allowed on there. Some of these trails are only 50 inches wide or smaller. So that's ATVs and dirt bikes. Some are just dirt bikes. This one here, overland, that typically means passenger cars are legal. You might not want to take your, Pontiac Grand Am out there. It might not make it. Typically you're going to want something with some higher clearance, but gives you an idea of what's allowed to go on that road there.
So Jack, we talked about, the different state levels and, going in the layers. So if somebody did have the elite membership and they wanted to go to a different state, how do they view those?
Great question. So you can see I've got Minnesota and Montana here. I was just in South Dakota. Let's say I wanted to see the information there. I open up my map layers menu and I just scroll down. Now I can see all the other states listed there. It shows me the two that I have turned on at the top, and then it's just alphabetical order. So if I scroll down to South Dakota, all I have to do is tap that switch there. It moves up to the top, and there are my South Dakota layers for me to turn on. If I go over to South Dakota, you can see as I zoom in, I'm starting to see some private and public starting to show up there.
Now, Jack, for myself, probably most people here, we're not hunting in the middle of town where there's great service. A lot of people are out, in areas where, we don't have coverage. So you want to kind of explain how we do that to make sure that we're able to see where we are.
Yes. So right below where it says hunt map layers, I'm going to tap that button that says offline maps. That's where you save your map for when you don't have service. Now you've got to do this beforehand. It does require a little bit of planning and forethought. But as you're sitting there at home tonight, you could do that. You could do it at work if your boss is cool. Let's say we're going to go, where are we going to go, Tori?
I don't know. How about northern Minnesota?
Okay.
I mean, I'm here in Missoula, so is it okay that I can do this save in a different state?
Yes, that's a question we get too, is do I have to be in the area? No, you can save an offline map anywhere in the country that you want to save it. What you do want to make sure is that you've got your state layers kind of turned on and active before you do this. My best advice is just kind of get the map showing what you want it to show, and then go into your offline maps tab there. And then let's go here. I'm just picking a random spot. I tap this new map button. Now whatever's within this red box is what's going to be saved on my map. I can still adjust it. I can use one finger. I'm moving it around. I can't zoom in and out right here because that box is fixed. It's 10 miles wide. So if I would zoom in, that would kind of distort that. But I can still move around. And once it's saved, you can zoom in on it. You're not going to be stuck with this zoomed out of view. But this is just while you're saving, it's showing you the perimeter. If I want a little bit higher imagery resolution, I might bump down to the 5 mile map. especially for this weekend when I'm going deer hunting. It's the same area we've been hunting. You know, I've been hunting there my entire life. We typically go to the same areas. We're not traveling super far. So 5 mile map is going to get me all the information I need. When I'm in Montana, 95% of the time I'm using the 10-mile maps because it's a little bit more active style of hunting. I'm moving around a lot more, and I don't really lose much in resolution. It's very close to the 5-mile map. So let's just save this one right now. You can see down below that counter that's showing how much is downloaded. And you can see the green box on my map. And you can see once it's finished, it turned bright green. And one thing I would recommend here is tap those 3 dots to the right of the name of the map, then tap edit and rename this. Because I have a couple hundred maps on my phone. And if they all just have the date and time that I saved them, it's going to get confusing later on when I want to go back and try to find some of those maps. So I'm just going to rename this test 1 for right now and hit save. Now, if I would want to save a bigger map, I can do that. Like say I want to save most of northern Minnesota, I can go to a 150-mile map and save it. I'm just going to do that right now. I do this as kind of a backup. That 150-mile map has pretty low imagery resolution, but it will work to tell you where the roads are and the trails and tell you what's private and what's public, so that if you get in a pinch, you can still navigate your way or find your way to some public land or wherever you're going. So it's not going to have as good a satellite imagery. So I don't use that as my main map. I'll use that as kind of a backup in case I'm hunting an area where I've got a 10-mile map saved, and then we decide we're going to move to a different spot, or we see some animals way far off and we're going to go there. Then at least I've got something.
And one thing that's neat about this is that, see, this is now on Jack's profile, basically. So he's saved this to his device. He's planning to take this phone out in the field with him. Let's say he's got a tablet that he's also signed in under. What that's going to show is it'll show that he has saved this map, but it's not actually downloaded. So if you ever do see some red and white dashed lines, and Jack, I know you got some around Missoula, I think, if you want to move over there. So you see that kind of candy cane stripe. What that means is the system says, okay, I see that Jack has saved this map, but it's just not saved to this device. So you can see the green check boxes under offline maps. If you see a circle with a down arrow, that means that it's not saved to your device yet. And this would be a bummer. If you went out in the woods, it's going to be blurry. You're still going to see your blue dot because that goes off satellite, but the map hasn't technically been saved yet. So you want to make sure before you head out, it's got that green checkbox next to the maps you're going to use.
And if it does look like this map I have and it's got the down arrow, I can tap that arrow and that's going to start downloading it for me.
You can kind of see how it's got kind of a faint green as it's downloading. Once it's fully saved, it'll be that brighter outlined offline map there.
And then you might notice,
I was going to say, like, you can see a couple of the 10-mile maps that Jack has got kind of side by side. I do that quite often where, man, I know I'm going to be kind of in this area, or maybe I know I'm going to be like following a river bottom or something, and it doesn't fit quite in that size that I want. It is totally fine to save maps next to each other like that, or nest them like Jack has done with the 150 square mile.
Yep. And one other thing you might notice on some of your maps, once you save them, it might say update available underneath. That's because we're constantly updating property ownership. We're getting new imagery. We're changing things up as we get more up-to-date data. So that data doesn't automatically update on your offline map because you've saved that to your phone, but it might be outdated because we've changed something since you downloaded it. You can just update that. I usually just tap that green check mark and it's going to update that map. You don't have to do this. We sometimes hear from people like, oh man, I was driving out and it said update available, so I had to go find service to go. Don't do that. If you're on your way out, just go. don't ruin your hunt because it says update available. Your map's still going to work. It just might have the wrong property owner name on it, which may be important, if you would shoot an animal and it runs on there or something. But I would still, in most cases, you're going to be fine. If you get the chance, think about it the week before, tonight, if you're going out hunting this weekend, double check them and update them tonight or Friday night, whenever, to update them. But it's not like it's a make or break type thing. You can still go hunting and use that map, and you'll be okay. Anything else on offline maps we're forgetting, Tori?
This is, I mean, I would say second is important as our layers itself. I mean, this is where people are able to use our maps in places that you don't have. I've seen some people say, they have a GPS too, which is great. This imagery, the location services are coming off the same satellites that are being used in GPSs. So that internal GPS from your phone or your tablet, that's working off satellite. So it's not cell tower. That's how that blue dot knows where you're at. So you got to make sure that you're allowing that location services before you are able to see those blue dots.
Yep. So let's move over. We're going to skip over my content for now and go to our tools. So this is the icon, looks kind of like a Swiss Army knife there. If I tap on that, you can see there's a handful of different tools available to you. We're going to start with waypoints. That's the most often used one, the one I use the most. There's two ways to use them. What I use quite a bit is this mark my location button. So if I tap that, it's going to tell me my location's been marked. And now I can see a waypoint right where I'm sitting right now. So this is handy for if you park the truck and you want to be able to mark that spot right before you leave, hit mark my location. If you're hiking in and you got a tree stand and you're at where you're going to put that stand up, or you're in the stand, mark my location. I do it for glassing areas, duck blinds, places where I might see a deer rub or a good trail running through. Anything I want to remember later, I'm going to hit mark my location when I'm standing there. What you need to do next then, and I can't stress this enough, is customize that waypoint. If you mark 100 different red X's on your map without any information, a year later, you're not going to remember, at least I'm not going to remember what each one of those was. Right now, I've been caught doing this where I'm in a hurry and I'll mark and I'll go back in later and change it. And then it's 2 hours later and I'm like, oh yeah, but what did I see there? What was that? So all you've got to do is tap on the waypoint, tap this edit button. I can change the name of it. I'm at a house right now. I'm going to change the icon to a house. So it's dozens of different icons for different species, for trail cameras, for scat, rubs, scrapes. There's even Sasquatch in there. We're going to find him one of these days, Tori. If enough people
favorite for sure. Yep.
People report their sightings, we can start to pattern him or something.
I think if they saw you or me walking in the woods, they'd probably mark it as a Sasquatch.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Getting back on topic. You can change the color of your waypoint. So this is how one of my favorite things to do is I will color code my waypoints, and I do it based on species. Everybody does this a little bit differently, but my deer waypoints that's what I hunt the most typically throughout the year. So that's why I just use this default kind of red-orange color for my deer waypoints. My bear waypoints are blue because I liked the alliteration of a blue bear. My turkey is kind of this light blue turquoise color. My waterfowl are green. I think my pronghorn spots are purple. My small game and upland are yellow. Elk are brown. That's one way to do it, so that at a glance I can tell, all right, these are my elk hunting spots. This is where I've seen bears. This is where I've hunted pheasants. Some people will do it by year. And I think that's a good way to do it too, where if you're like, man, I really only hunt deer, then what you can do is have, all right, all of my 2020 waypoints I made blue. All of my 2021 ones were brown. 2022, I'm using green. so that you can see like, oh man, there were rubs in these spots year after year. Or maybe it's moving around because, man, this was a really dry year and last year was really wet, and you can see the difference. It's really up to you what you make it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I guess I would say the only wrong way to do it is to do nothing.
Right.
You really do want to customize them. You can even put notes in there. I do that sometimes for areas that I hunt every year, and I'll put in what I saw in 2020, 2021, 2022. So you can begin to start seeing some of that stuff. I'm going to hit save, and there you can see the color change. My icon changed. If I tap on it, it's going to tell me the name. Now, let's say I wanted Tori to come to this spot. Let's say we're hunting together, and he's probably not going to come, to my brother's house here. But if I've got a spot where, hey, we're going to park here in the morning, we're going to meet up here, or I've got a duck blind I want to send him to, I can tap this share button, select that one, and I'm not going to hit the share button right now because it'll show all my contacts and stuff. But I can text that to Tori, and he'll get a link on his phone. He'll tap it. It will open up in the app, and he can add that waypoint to his map.
Now,
So
if you're
this is
sharing with your friends and they're not seeing it or you're not seeing it, make sure that your phone software is up to date and make sure your app version is up to date. That can sometimes create hiccups with that share.
Yep. We've heard from some folks having some trouble with the share. Most common reason for that is one or the other's versions not up to date. So something to double check there. But this share is super helpful for, let's say I would kill a deer and need some help dragging. I can send that out to whoever's nearby that can help me drag it out. Let's say I would be, heaven forbid my car breaks down, which Tori knows happens quite often to me.
I'm surprised you made it to Minnesota.
What's that?
I'm surprised you made it all the way to Minnesota.
I know, I was pretty lucky this time, knock on wood. I can send that location. If you're trying to tell a loved one, hey, I'm hunting this area, you can do that. And they don't have to have an onX membership to receive a shared waypoint. That's what's nice. If they don't have onX, you can still send it to them. It'll take them through the download process and they can still see that without having to spend any money. Kind of a neat safety feature there.
So Jack, let's say that you, went and created this, but you hit the mark my location where you actually meant to put it, maybe let's say it's down by that Clear Lake area. That's kind of south of you. So
Sure.
What if you needed to adjust it?
This waypoint here,
Mm-hmm.
what I can do is I can go into edit it. And then I can just tap on the area I want it to be. So when I'm in that edit screen, I can tap on it. Now let's say, and I can hit save and it'll stay there. Let's say I did this by accident. I can hit, so never mind. There we go. So I can get out of that. I can discard the changes. Otherwise, if I do want to move it over to Clear Lake, hit save and there it is. Now that brings up the other way to mark a waypoint. If I want to mark a spot that's not where I am, I can hit this add waypoint button. That's going to drop a pin in the center of my map. I would recommend zooming in as close as you can. Let's say I want to hunt this spot in Maple Lake. And then I can rename it right from that screen as well. I can change the icon and color. I'm not going to do that for this one. And there we are. We're going to quickly hit, I know we're got about 15 minutes left is all. I'm going to quickly go through the line distance and the area shape tools. Line distance is really neat for measuring like the perimeter of something, measuring how far away something is. Let's say I want to know from this property line to this property line, 881 yards. So you can use this to, a lot of people will do the perimeter of an area they want to fence or the perimeter of a food plot. They want to see, I've used it for when I'm glassing a far mountainside and my rangefinder doesn't work, but there's a big grassy patch there and I see an animal in the middle of it. I'll put a dot on my location. I'll run that line across to them and I can see, all right, that's 3/4 of a mile away, right? Not that I'm going to shoot that far, but I know how far away it is and how close I need to get to that location. So it can kind of be even a range finder for you. And like waypoints, I can change the color, I can change the style, I can share it. Area shape is similar, where I can highlight and area. And I can keep dropping as many points on this as I want. So I can tell the acreage of an area. I can tell the perimeter of it. Again, I can change the color of it, the inside, the line color. This is probably
a lot of guys
most
use that
used.
for food plots.
I was going to say it's probably most used for food plots, for people to tell how much fertilizer do I need to buy? How much seed do I need to buy? And then it's cool if you have a bunch of them where people will color code them. So all of their bean plots are one color, all of their rye is one color, their oats, whatever they're planting, to kind of see what you have and where. So that's the area shape tool real quick.
Now, one thing I was going to kind of throw a little wrench in there for you, Jack, is, we've talked about querying quite a bit, when you actually tap on the map. A lot of our content, we get asked, where do you get your content from? Where do you get this information from? A lot of different services, but like ownership, we get that from the county level, so hopefully if you went online and looked at your county, information that you see there should be the same as us. But man, how many people bought houses in just this time that we were talking? Can you kind of walk them through if they see something that's incorrect?
Yeah. So if you see a private parcel or a public that's incorrect, we have an error reporting process in there. So I'm just going to take this place at random. Let's say that I know that this land has been sold. It's no longer owned by the Split Rail Ranch LLC, which again, this is all hypothetical. Along the bottom of my screen, oops, I accidentally zoomed out of this. Give me right back here. Along the bottom of my screen where it says add waypoint, share. If I go all the way over, there's report an error. This is how you can get directly in contact with our mapping team, where I can say, this is a private land error. The landowner name is incorrect. If it was, I knew the landowner did own it, but the boundary lines were off, I would select that. And you can select more than one.
Maybe it got split.
Right. Maybe they subdivided it or something. I could type in the correct landowner name if I know the primary and secondary or just the primary. And then once I type something in here, I'm not actually going to submit this, but then you just hit report error. That gets sent to our mapping team. They'll be in touch with you, say, hey, thanks for the report. And then they'll follow up with, once it's been, we always verify everything. That's why some people will say, man, I told you it was owned by this person. Why hasn't it been fixed yet? It's because somebody like me could go in and just say, I own all this land. It's not that we don't trust people, but
you wouldn't do that.
No, never. But we've got to verify. So we always verify with the county. So we'll go check with them and say, hey, we've got a report that this parcel is now owned by John Doe. And they'll, sometimes we can just get that information right from them. They'll say, yep, that's correct. It was, last week somebody bought it, whatever. Sometimes the county takes a little bit of time to update their information. A lot of counties only update their parcel data once a year. So we don't change anything unless we can verify it with the county. So sometimes it might behoove you to get in touch with your county and see when they plan to update it, because the sooner they update it, the sooner we can update ours.
And we don't gain anything by having incorrect information. So we do appreciate when people take the time to report this to us. We're pretty good as a company, but we're not walking every property line. We're not knocking on all the doors. So we really do have to depend on a lot of, third party to get that information. So if you do happen to see something that you feel is incorrect, or a boundary line is wrong, or, the ownership, which is that's going to be a typical thing. Definitely don't hesitate to let us know, and we appreciate your patience and understanding while we get it squared away. It's not something that we can just, like Jack said, snap our fingers and have it fixed right away. We're going to do our due diligence, dot our I's, cross our T's, and make sure that that is in fact, incorrect, and then we'll correct it when we can. Absolutely.
And that reminds me of another question we get fairly often, especially from certain pockets of the country, is why is there no parcel data in this county? So there are some counties in, I know, South Dakota, North Dakota are kind of hot spots for this. There's a few in New Mexico. UP and Michigan's getting better, but we're still missing some. Colorado. And there are counties where we don't have any parcel data. And that's because it's not because we just said, nah, we're not going to show that information. It's because that county does not have a digitized parcel data set that's available for us to use. Most of these counties are very rural counties. And most of the time it's just they don't have the resources on hand to be able to take their plat book information and digitize it and make it available to entities like us. Now, every year, more and more counties are doing that. So since the time Tori and I have been at onX, I've been here a little over 4 years, Tori 7 years.
About, yeah.
Man, I'm good. We've added a bunch of counties. There's counties where we used to not have parcel data and now we do. So again, it's like Tori said before, we don't benefit from not having it. We would love 100% coverage across the board. As soon as counties digitize and make that available, we're going to be sure to get it in the map. So that's something we sometimes have people say, hey, what can I do? You can try to talk to your county, if you're local there, and say, hey, it'd be really awesome if you guys could digitize this, because it's not just companies like onX that benefit, it's all kinds of folks. A lot of times it is kind of a funding or a resource issue, but never hurts to ask and check there.
Absolutely. So Jack, a couple things that I've seen some people ask is, can you explain how to like search for something? We didn't really talk about like searching.
Yes. So on my phone here, in the top right corner, there is a magnifying glass. If I tap that, let me clear out of these.
So if I had like coordinates that I wanted to go to.
Yep. So I'm not going to type them in, but if you have coordinates, you can copy and paste, or I'm just going to use this example here that's down below, this search example. You can type in the coordinates. Maybe you got them off a friend who has a GPS, or you got them from some other site. Hit the search button. That's going to bring me to this location in Missoula, Montana. Going to bring me right there. So that's neat too. If, like I said, if you have a friend who doesn't have onX yet and they're using a GPS or they're using some other map, they can say, hey, meet up at this location, or I'm at this spot. You can type it in and find them. You can also search for a landowner. So if I'm going to search for, just going to type in Smith. And you can see there's a lot of results there. You can see they're all in Missoula County. The map is going to prioritize searches nearest to where the map is located at that point. So if I'm looking for somebody with last name Smith in Missoula, having the map over Missoula makes sense. If I'm looking for somebody in Florida with the last name Smith, I should move my map to Florida and search for Smith, and it's going to prioritize those results. And it works kind of like Google, where the more information you give it, the better your result's going to be. So just searching for Smith, not likely to be a successful search for me. But if I know it's John Anthony Smith, that can help, right? Because there's a lot less of those than just people with the last name Smith. So the more info you can give it, the better. That's how you search for the landowner. The one last kind of common search is searching for a landmark or a town or a county. So I am in Benton County, Minnesota. I can search and it brings me to Benton County. You could search for Yellowstone National Park. You could search for Mount Whitney. You can search for peaks, lakes, all kinds of different locations there.
Yeah, I think a lot of our rec sites are searchable, which is super helpful.
Yep. Yeah. If you're looking for a particular fishing access or a campground, you can search for that. Last thing I wanted to really hit on here is our tracker. This is kind of like another tool similar to waypoints, but this is how you can track yourself as you're walking through the woods, through the field, as you're driving even. What you do is you hit this start button, your icon is going to turn, your dot is going to turn red. And since I'm not moving, you see my distance hasn't changed, but if I were driving, I would see the miles start to count down. So this is super helpful for finding your way back. I use it all the time when I'm hiking, when I'm elk hunting or deer hunting, so that I can find the exact route I took in. I can follow that back if I want, maybe I took a really bad route in and now I know what to avoid. Maybe there's a bunch of deadfall or something like that. I'm just going to stop this for right now. Once you stop it, you're given the option to resume it. You can delete it. Since I didn't go anywhere, it doesn't give me the option to save because there's no track to save, but that option would be lit up there as well. Like your other markups, you'll be able to change the name, the color, all that stuff. You can share it. And that's about it on the tracker. What else was I forgetting there, Tori? Oh, another example of this would be, let's say I'm going deer hunting with my brother this weekend, and I decide to put up a deer stand in a new spot, and it's northern Minnesota. It's thick woods. We're walking in the dark. We try to kind of, mark some of the areas with like flagging tape or something, especially if we're on private land. Make sure you take your flagging tape down when you're done. Don't litter the woods with that stuff. But that can be hard to find. What I could do is if I set the stand in the daylight and then I walk the trail out back to the main road, I can have that track on my phone. I can send it to my brother. He can pull it up on his phone and he can find the exact route in. Because maybe I had to skirt around a swamp, or maybe I want to go a certain way because of the wind or not to bump some deer out or something. So like kind of anything else in onX, it kind of is what you make it. There's no real right or wrong way. Whatever works for you. People will use it to say, hey, drive this road to get up to this hunting area, walk this route in. It could be another safety feature there too, where you could send it to somebody and they know the route that you took in.
We used it last night, trick-or-treating. Did I drop a waypoint at the houses that gave full candy bars? I may have. Got to remember that for next year.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
I've used this app for like the randomness things. Probably my funnest one is I dropped a waypoint to mark my vehicle at the airport parking lot, so I remembered where I was after my trip.
Yep. Well, I'm going to quickly jump over to our web map here so that we can take a look at that. Now, this is included in your onX membership. You have access to the onX web map. All you have to do is go to our website, which is onxmaps.com. In the top right, there's going to be a button. What does it say now, Tori? Open map.
I think, yeah.
And you can log in there. It's the same email address and password you use on your phone. So that's a question we get like, hey, I use one email on my computer, use a different email on my phone. Doesn't matter. Whatever email you use to create your account is what you have to use on all of your devices. So if you made it on your phone, use that same email address and password.
If you're not sure on your phone while you're logged in, you tap the 3 horizontal lines at the top left to open up the menu on the left-hand side, and that'll show you what name and email that you're currently logged in on your app.
So the reason I jumped over here is because I wanted to show our different base maps. But before we get into that, you can do everything I just did on my phone with the exception of running the tracker. You can do that all on this map here. So I can mark waypoints, I can do lines, I can do areas, I can turn layers. Maps. I can make offline maps. Now, if I make an offline map here, it won't automatically go to my phone. We'll do this real quick. So I went into offline maps here. I'm going to choose a 10-mile map. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to get this message that says it's not automatically downloaded to my mobile device. I have to go in and do that. So if I would pull up my phone right now, it would show this map that I just saved with the red candy cane stripe from earlier. I would just have to go in and download that. But let's talk about base maps here real quick. In the lower right-hand corner, there's this button here that says Hybrid 2D. We've got 3 different base maps for you to use. The one most people are familiar with is the satellite base map. So this is kind of what people are used to. It shows you that satellite imagery. I can zoom in pretty close, get a sense of what that looks like. I can also do a topo map where it's going to show me the topographic lines, show me the contour of the ground. And what's neat about the topo map is it's really easy to find water there because you don't have so much other stuff cluttering up the map. So I can see all these little lakes and ponds here, which might be of interest to me. And then kind of a combination of the two is the hybrid map. This is what I use most of the time because I'm able to see the land, the imagery, I can see, oh, here's, this is forested. This is more bare, open mountainside. There may be a park here, something like that. And I can still see the terrain, the contours. I can see how steep it is. Like this area here, all these lines stacked up together, probably pretty steep. Not going to be hiking up that anytime soon. And then if you want to go kind of to the next level, I can click on the 3D button. So I can see, yeah, that does look pretty steep there. So this is super slick. I love using the 3D on our web map, mostly because it's a big screen and I can see a lot more. But I can kind of fly over this, and take a look. And it's kind of like Tori mentioned earlier, you can kind of go there without really being there. Now, still, I guarantee you could look at some of this stuff and be like, it's not that steep. It's steeper than you think. It always is, but this gets you a little bit closer.
Going to the high dive at the public pool, I remember like, oh, that's not that big. And then you go up there and you can see like buzzards underneath you.
You had a different high dive at your public pool. I think ours
was magic. Like I'd get a couple steps up and all of a sudden it's 30 feet in the air.
I'm having visions of the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, a lot of that happened. That was based on my life. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So the last thing I kind of want to talk about here is you might say, well, this is great, Jack, but I'm not in Montana. I'm in Minnesota by you. Well, let's go over there. Oh, my computer decided to turn off my location access. I need to rechange that setting. I bet you it's because I updated the operating system today and it reset everything.
Could be.
So I'm going to zoom in on this spot. Central Minnesota is not known as the most hilly terrain. Okay. So let's go into 3D mode. Still looks pretty flat, doesn't it? What I can do is I can use this 3D elevation exaggeration slider where, let me get back here. Now you can see it's gotten a little bit more mountainous looking up here. If I do it even more and zoom back in, now it looks downright, alpine. Is this what it actually looks like? No. But what it's helpful for is being able to find those slight variations in topography. Let's say you're in an area where there might be a lot of water, a swampy area or something, but an elevation change of a couple feet is the difference from it being dry to you being, over your boots in water. You can use this elevation exaggeration to kind of try to find that area a little bit better. In an area like this, even a small little saddle in a ridge that you wouldn't see from the regular 3D, that might be used by animals to cross just because it's a little bit easier to cross there. Maybe there's a little bit more cover in a low-lying area or something like that. So that's something to take a look at if you're in, if you're not in the Rockies or the Appalachians, to turn that exaggeration on. I've even known guys in the mountain states. I think it was one of the guys from Eastman's from the magazine who was talking about, we talked about how everything always looks steeper. He said he found if he turns this about a third of the way up, he said then that gives him almost a better idea of, okay, when I'm actually there, this is what it might look like.
Nice.
So that about wraps us up for the demo, the 101. I do want to kind of show a couple more things to folks here, a couple more opportunities. Back on my slideshow here, let me get to that. Share my screen. So we mentioned earlier, we do have other master classes. We do typically at least one, sometimes two a week. Later on Thursday of this week, we're doing a whitetail rut report. We're also doing one next Thursday to get kind of a look at how the rut progressed over that week. Folks in the South, waterfowl season's just kind of starting to come in for you folks here shortly. So later on in November, we're doing a Southern waterfowl specific masterclass. For folks, it's still hunting season, but it's never too early to think about next year. Idaho and Alaska have some November deadlines for some of their tag purchases for their over the counter and for their applications. So we're going to be getting into application season already. So for folks that are interested in coming out west or hunting out of state, we're going to have a series of application strategy masterclasses coming up in November and then after the first of the year. And any of our old ones, including this webinar, I should have mentioned it at the beginning. This one will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So you will be able to rewatch it. If you came in late and weren't able to see the beginning, you can watch that. And you can also check out our older ones. We've done everything from scouting for elk and scouting for deer to scouting for quail and grouse. How to age deer. We did that one. It was either last week or the week before. That one was super interesting. So wide variety of masterclasses that are available for you to check out.
Didn't you say there's something about a giveaway?
We're going to get to the giveaway right after this.
That's right.
So if you don't have an onX membership currently, if you're one of those basic members with the free membership, we do have a 30% off discount offer for you. Use the code app101, saves you 30% off your first year's premium or elite membership. And this has to be applied at our website. You can't do this in either of the app stores. They don't accept promo codes. Has to be entered on our website. That's something we hear from people once in a while. They'll say they purchased from iTunes and they weren't able to put a promo code in. It's because they don't accept them. Has to go to our website. If you do have any questions on this or trouble on it, you can always, again, email help@onxmaps.com. We'll be happy to walk you through and get you set up with that discount. Here's the giveaway. I'm going to ask one of our folks in the Q&A and in the chat to post this link there. But we're giving away 10 of these onX Topo t-shirts. We've got a women's and unisex styles. So choose the style that you want. Entry does close at midnight Mountain Time tonight. I will email all of the winners tomorrow. So if you don't get an email from me sometime tomorrow morning, unfortunately, you weren't the winner. If you do, you were the winner, one of the winners, and we'll get that shirt sent out to you. Typically takes, a few days to a week or so to get those all sent out.
I mean, Jack, they listened to us talk for an hour. Aren't they all winners already?
I think they are. That's a very good point.
Come on.
All right. I think we've got just a few minutes. We'll try to hit some Q&A from some folks. There were some folks that wrote in with some questions. Let's see. We talked about how to search for a GPS coordinate. We talked about a way to set the map with the heading always up. We did that earlier. Talked about how to report an error. Here's one. After I mark a spot, how do I get back to it in the morning? I'm going to jump back in and share my screen here for a moment so that I can show this. So if I'm in, let's say I want to get to this deer waypoint that I've marked. I can tap on the waypoint, and if I scroll over, I can hit this go to waypoint. Now it's 11 miles away, so I'm probably going to be driving. So where I typically will use this is when I'm walking, if I want to get back to the truck or I want to get back to a stand or a blind. And this is, of course, showing me as the crow flies. We don't have turn-by-turn directions for you, but this is a way where I can say, all right, I've got to go that direction. This is how far away I am. And everybody knows when you're walking in the woods, you're walking in the mountains, rarely can you ever just walk in a straight line. You've got to go around deadfall. You've got to go around a swamp. You got to go around cliffs or whatever. This is nice for letting you know that, hey, as long as the number's going down, I'm getting closer. And that straight line there is kind of always bringing you back to the right spot. Say I have to go around, and walk around a way. I have that line to kind of keep reminding me how to get back to where I want to be. Let's see. I think we hit everything else. Tori, anything I'm forgetting?
Again, no, I'd say if you have any specific questions about your account and your access, definitely reach out to us, help@onxmaps.com. That's going to be the best way. We get back to everybody within 24 business hours. So we definitely want to not be the reason that you're not enjoying your adventures out there in the wild. So and the one thing too, we covered a lot of stuff. So if you're, you know, kind of afraid and you think this is a live snake, there's nothing that you can do that you can't undo. You're not going to break it. So get in there and really use it. I think the more you monkey with it, the more familiar you're going to be with it, have a better understanding of like, oh, that's what that layer means. If you ever see something, you're like, I don't know, it's covered in something, I don't know what's going on. It's probably a layer that we have active, one of those nationwide layers, that roadless or the forest visitors map or something that's somehow got toggled on, that's creating, you know, that look that you're seeing. So just go through, take a look at your layers, take a look at what you got active, toggle them on and off, and just kind of have a better understanding of the application.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something I forgot to mention earlier. There's no real way to break the app. I've heard that, you know, from some folks of that they lost a layer, the layer's gone. I've never seen a layer actually truly be deleted.
Right.
It just got turned off, and maybe you turned off that whole folder in the states down below. It's there. If you do have, you know, if something's not looking right, definitely check those layers. That's the first thing I would do. Check to see what layers are turned on and off. That's the most common cause of things not looking right. But worst comes to worst, we're always here to help at onxmaps.com.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, with that, have a good rest of your evening, Tori.
You do the same.
Thanks, everybody.